Hello guys, what is up? Welcome back to andyartstv. This is your boy Andy Matrix, and today we're gonna talk about the remakes, possible remakes for Final Fantasy VIII, Final Fantasy IX, and news on Final Fantasy XVI, baby. Let's see what happens. Okay, so man, it seems like this channel is all about remakes now, because the recent video was on a Disney live-action remake. Was it Treasure Planet live-action remake? And some other stuff. But yeah, it's and I keep saying that because we have the technology now to make things more realistic, less blocky and look more like us. It's a lot of companies are they're cashing in on that. They're cashing in on the nostalgia. And instead of having blocky graphics, with polygons and shit, now they're creating full life-size, characters on the big screen and video games too. So, it's the age of the remakes and reboots. Hey, welcome to 2019 and 2020. What the heck? So, anyways, Final Fantasy VIII and Final Fantasy IX are next to be remade by Square Enix. And the reason why these two titles have been chosen is because Square Enix said that they're not going to remake anything before the PlayStation 1 era. So in other words, any other Final Fantasy games that were made before the PlayStation 1, it's not going to be remade. And so if it's for like the old Nintendo or Super Nintendo, the old Final Fantasy games from 1 to 6, from 1 to 5, I think, not gonna happen. I believe Final Fantasy VI is on PlayStation 1. But other than that, it's Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy IX, Final Fantasy VIII. Those are for the PlayStation 1, right? And then of course you have Final Fantasy X, which is for the PlayStation 2, and then the Kingdom Hearts series. So everything from the PlayStation 1 era, there is being looked at for remakes. So Final Fantasy VIII, of course, is number one on the list because Final Fantasy VIII is one of the fan favorites, of course. It's one of the fan favorites, especially with Squall. Some people don't like Squall, some people like him. Some people only like his gunblade, but they don't like him specifically because he's kind of an asshole. And by the way, I think this picture I got for you, I think is from the Cydia. This image here. And yeah, so Final Fantasy VIII is next in development. Is most likely it's gonna be remade. Next development for PlayStation 4 and upcoming platforms in the future. Better graphics, more realistic graphics. So, of course, Final Fantasy VII is the number one Final Fantasy game thus far. So, and not only that, but it was easier to make Final Fantasy VII because Square Enix already made the Advent Children movie, which is a Final Fantasy movie that takes place after the events of the game. With Sephiroth's clones and the return of Sephiroth and all that stuff, right? And I can understand, Final Fantasy VIII. It's and I don't really like 8, but I mean I would like to see a remake. I think if it is made, I would like to see a remake. What people don't like about Final Fantasy VIII is the junction system. The junction system is just like a neck breaker. Like it's just, oh man, it's so different from the other games. It's like kind of tedious. I mean, when Final Fantasy X came out with the whole sphere grid level up, that was okay, it was adaptable, but the junction system was kind of annoying as far as like a level up system. So yeah, that's Final Fantasy VIII. And also, it's Final Fantasy IX. I decided to take this picture just to show you like the difference in graphics from the remaster Final Fantasy IX to the old one. I mean, look at the difference, it's so much smoother, it just looks so much better. And yeah, so this is actually one of my favorite ones. Next to 10, this is one of my favorite ones because I'm really more of a fantasy guy than a sci-fi dude. Because Final Fantasy VII is sci-fi, Final Fantasy VIII sci-fi, Final Fantasy X is kind of like in the middle, fantasy and sci-fi because it's got both elements. And the Final Fantasy series have been really good at that, at like bringing this kind of like magic technology world together. But I'm more of a fantasy guy, and Final Fantasy IX was more of like a steampunk epic fantasy. It has steampunk in it, but it was really more on the epic fantasy side, like Lord of the Rings, which I freaking love, with Zidane and the crew. So again, it's just this one has been chosen because it's for PlayStation 1. It's in the PlayStation 1 era. It's also a fan favorite. I mean, not as loved as Final Fantasy 7 and 8, or even 10 really, but it's still up there. People like it, people love it, the majority at least. And you know, some people complain that the figures, the figures in Final Fantasy 9, they look too small. They were like kind of like midget like, and that doesn't really bother me. I mean, I thought it was great. They have human proportions, you know, so I can't wait for it to be done. Now, before we move on to the next slide, talking about Final Fantasy 16, I just want to say that while Final Fantasy Remake is still in development, they're not going to work on Final Fantasy 8 or 9 as far as remakes. That they're gonna have to wait till the entire Final Fantasy 7 is done, and I believe that Final Fantasy 7 is basically going to be episodic, because by the looks of the trailer, I don't think they're going to fit in an entire Final Fantasy 7 world with Midgar, the Temple of the Ancients, and the entire world map in there, and Yuffie's village and all that stuff. It's huge, so they're gonna have to break it up into like maybe one or two discs, and I think they're doing that on purpose, just to kind of give people that feeling like, oh look, it's you know, it's just like the first game, just like when the game came out, it had 3 discs, you know, to give people that, you know, that feeling of nostalgia. But anyways, moving on. So also Final Fantasy 16, guys. Final Fantasy 16, yes, there will be a Final Fantasy 16, of course, because, you know, that's how Final Fantasy is. You just add a number onto it, right? There will be a Final Fantasy 16, and Naoki Yoshida, who is the director and creator of the Final Fantasy 14 online game, The Realm Reborn, and I think Stormbreaker, I think it was? The Realm Reborn, yeah. That game, it's, that game, Naoki Yoshida, he's the director of it, and he's saying that he wants to step away from the sci-fi element, and he wants the next Final Fantasy game to be more fantasy. So less sci-fi, more fantasy. So this means it's going to be less like Final Fantasy 7, less like Final Fantasy 8, which are both sci-fis, by the way. It has a magic element, but they're both freaking sci-fi, for God's sakes. Less like Final Fantasy 13, which is also more sci-fi. Less like Final Fantasy 15, which again, it's really more sci-fi. I mean, it's very like, it's really more modern. You know, the 4 dudes like driving in a car, you know, through the state of Texas, as I like to call it, through the state of Texas, and yeah, so they're driving through, you know, 4 dudes on a road trip, basically, with magic swords and fighting robots and shit, right? And of course, they fight monsters along the way. Because it's Final Fantasy, but it's really more sci-fi. And Naoki Yoshida, he said that Final Fantasy 16, he wants it to be more fantasy, so less mecha, less technology. Maybe it's gonna have a little bit of steampunk, and I would love it. I would freaking love it if they decide to make it kind of like prehistoric, like in the dinosaur age, something like that. That would be freaking amazing if they could do that. And maybe it's just me, because I'm a fantasy freak. I'm more of a Lord of the Rings and Star Wars type of guy. But man, that would be so interesting if they go the prehistoric route. You know, just really like 10,000 BC. You know, everything will look so different. Like the outfits will be, you know, the outfits will be so different. They will have to really look like they're ancient. Really ancient. The summons, I cannot imagine how the summons will look and the locations. I mean, it's really just exciting. It's exciting thinking about it. Final Fantasy 16, that's prehistoric. You know, not many games take that route, but I would love to see Final Fantasy take this route with the summons, Shiva, Ifrit, Bahamut, the magic system, and the classes. I mean, they could have like a berserker, of course, and all these classes. And you know, a white mage who's, you know, who can still be a healer, the black mage, and the way it would look, and the way that the way that the alphas would be, the magic system, the warriors, and the story. I wonder how the story would be. I mean, it would probably be like, oh man, I'm again, like I said, I'm just a fantasy dude. So, Final Fantasy 16, I'm really I'm really anticipating it, because 15 sucks, guys. I mean, a lot of people will agree that Final Fantasy 15 sucked with Noctis and the crew. I mean, don't get me wrong, the battle system was pretty cool. I mean, it was very Kingdom Hearts, and the story was just like, people were just like, what the fuck? And the fact that it was like a, like a road trip, it made it feel like you were playing Grand Theft Auto. Final Fantasy 15 is the only one that didn't feel like a Final Fantasy game to me. Even the magic system was watered down to the point where Noctis would like have to like craft these items and turn them into like these things that he would throw to cast fire, Faraga, and all that shit, right? And it just man, it didn't feel like a Final Fantasy game. The story was just like that, and the adventure of the game, like kind of like an open world game. Final Fantasy games were meant to be linear, and that's what made it great, because then not only, I mean, you could explore, but the point is to follow the story and to enjoy the story. If you're a story-driven person, you'll love Final Fantasy. But hey, I mean, that's just me. I'm a Final Fantasy dude. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. And so that is it for this Final Fantasy news. 8 and 9 possible remakes. Final Fantasy 16 will be more fantasy and less mecha, less sci-fi. And that is it, guys. Don't forget to check out andyartstv. We are a blog about anime, fantasy and sci-fi movies, RPG games. We talk about geeky careers. The most recent article was on the animation career and what to do to get into the animation industry. We're also going to do interviews. I want to do interviews with professionals, people in the field, like comic book artists, writers, and just people that are overall in the field of anime, art, even actors. Man, it'll be so cool if I can interview an actor here on the channel. But anyways, that is it for this podcast, guys. This is Andy Matrix. Peace out. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, like this video.